Hello, everyone. My name's Chris, and I'm from the World Crypto Network. And thank you for joining us today, where we'll be talking about CoinSummit. It's a very exclusive Bitcoin event held in Canary Wharf, London, the financial fraud capital of the world. I'm joined today by Theo Goodman.
Hi, everybody.
Where are you coming from today, Theo?
I'm in Frankfurt, Germany, which is the home of the European Central Bank and a lot of European, probably second to London for the European capital markets.
So this morning we've been watching the live stream that's come straight out of the venue. I have to give credit to Pamir for running such a tight ship. The live stream has been very good quality, and this is the location. Let me just pull this up. So here we have it. Here's where Bitcoin has finally penetrated. Actually, these guys did host an event last year up in level 39 in Canary Wharf. I went to that event. It was a very good event. But this year, the tickets are £720 each, and that's just if you're an entrepreneur. If for anyone else, I think it was £1,200 plus VAT. So I was quite skeptical initially when this event was announced. I heard that a lot of good people in London, friends of mine that run, good businesses in the Bitcoin space, weren't able to get tickets either because they couldn't afford them or because they weren't invited. So I'm interested to get your reaction, Theo. Did you watch much of it this morning?
Yeah, I watched the introduction speech and most of the first guy, the venture capitalist. I'm sorry, I always forget his name.
Roger Ver, Bitcoin
Yeah,
Jesus.
exactly. Bitcoin, Bitcoin Jesus. And yeah, I mean, I was trying to be, like you said, it's a real expensive and kind of, I guess in a critical way, you could say it's kind of like the Bitcoin elite. That's what I tweeted about. That I mean, you got Ghash, you got Bitcoin Foundation, you got all of the big venture capitalists all in the same room. If there is a hacker that wants to steal someone's coins, if those guys are stupid enough to use the public Wi-Fi, then they're going to be a big demonstration of how not to use Bitcoin. But anyway, yeah, actually, I was really pleasantly surprised. I think the opening speech was really okay. It was pretty interesting, and the first speaker also was asked the audience who here is Bitcoin curious, who really is new to Bitcoin. A lot of people were, so he, geared his first talk to new people, and he said that I can't remember exactly what he said, to be honest, but he said a lot of good. I thought that I was pleasantly surprised by what his little points were
Maybe
about.
maybe the reason you can't remember what he said is that he actually didn't say anything particularly insightful or groundbreaking. Sorry,
That is
Roger, but
true.
it's
No,
the thing is
you're right.
that was a really unenlightening speech. Do people really need to be reminded that for the first time ever you can actually send economic value around the world? I mean,
Exactly. That's true. That's true. I think that what it is was a typical rah-rah speech. It's a kind of like a rah-rah event where everyone celebrate, yeah, yeah, Bitcoin, yeah, Bitcoin, yeah, Bitcoin, yeah, and
a
that's why,
VC a
yeah,
VC circle jerk is what we've come to
yeah.
call it.
That's why I posted Coin Summit has started. Pump Bitcoin. Yeah, because I mean, it should be a massive. In the past, when for example, last year when there were those big New York hearings about Bitcoin, and there was all the talk, and the creator of Litecoin was being interviewed on air at these big New York hearings. Everything was going through the roof. But I think now Coin Summit, I don't know if it's really going to pump anything if a venture capitalist does a simple rah-rah speech like that.
Well, the
But
thing is actually that the price has actually gone down, and this is usually what happens when events like this kick off, is usually the price goes down, mostly because the people that are bullish are all in that room and they're not trading. Like
yeah, that
at
could be
least
it.
it's taking people's eyes off the price for a change.
Yeah, I guess that's true too. Um, and yeah, I also don't mean to be hyper analytical, but the guy that did the opening speech, he had his hand in his pocket when he was talking. That kind of like irks me a little. I don't know. I just can't really deal with that sometimes. Maybe it's just a personal thing. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist exactly. I don't know. But it means something. I mean, he's probably nervous. He has one hand in his pocket and he's trying to talk. maybe he's just not a good speaker. I don't know. I don't like that. I think that shows like a kind of reserved. He's hiding something. He did the normal spiel. He said, "Yeah, thanks a lot, CX.io for being our main sponsor," and the normal stuff that you expect from this kind of conference. I was a little irked that they started 10 minutes late, but it's just me. I think that if you're going to do a big conference that costs so much, then you could start on time. But I don't know. Maybe that's just I guess
Oh,
in
come on.
Germany, I'm used to the German way, and people are really on time. So,
Compared
you
to,
know,
compared to
yeah.
most Bitcoin events, this was a really, really well run ship.
Okay.
And actually, the one that they did July last year, like it was so down to the minute they actually had a buzzer when you had to stop talking, and
Ah,
Pamir was
okay.
right up on the stage. So yeah, compared to most Bitcoin events, which are absolute nightmares. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Garrett Heilman from CoinDesk. He did a report on the state of Bitcoin Q2 2014. Let me just pull it up here. It's
Okay.
had 130,000 downloads, apparently, he said when he was asked. And this is something that CoinDesk have published. And it was really interesting, some of the insights to come out that only $5 million has been invested into European Bitcoin businesses, compared to like 95% of the capital going to America. And of course, this is another form of centralization. And we're also seeing another insight to come out, not only from Garrick's talk, but also from one of the other panels later on, was that a lot of the businesses that are going to be getting funding are these businesses that do take a universal approach. So they're not any one thing. They're not just wallets. They're not just
Yeah.
exchanges. They do a range of products and services that provide the on and off ramps into the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Well, I mean, I think a mixed I don't I think that's a good way to do it, a mixed business that does a lot of things. I mean, not spread yourself too short, but I mean, from a business point of view, I think that's okay, and you need to be flexible. We don't really know what's going to be needed exactly in the future. I mean, you might have guys that are more programmers do or more, I don't know, it's doing something else. They might be teaching people basic security like we were talking about yesterday because that's what's needed. So I think from a business point of view, it's okay to do a lot of different things. But yeah, I'm surprised with that number from Europe too. I have no idea. Yeah, I didn't know it was so central. And then that goes on. I mean, the Bitcoin Foundation is also, they've also had their struggles with, the critique about being really centralized, and I think that, and they've reached out. I mean, I know they've reached. So now I'm a member of the Bitcoin Foundation because another organization that I'm a member of in Germany, which is the BVB, is decided that the Bitcoin Foundation offered a partnership to them and said, guys, do you want to, like be like a partner with the Bitcoin Foundation? Everyone in your organization will be in the Bitcoin Foundation too, because they're trying to reach out and decentralize. And it's also, there was a lot of discussion about it, but we decided to do it. It's also limited. It's like a 3-year contract or whatever. But anyway, yeah, that's really interesting. 6 different Bitcoin company classifications. That's actually also a really interesting graph there you got.
Yeah, so there are actually three main layers to the Bitcoin ecosystem. You've got the blockchain layer, which is
Yeah.
either starting your own coin or a meta coin that allows for the transfer of contracts over the network. You then have the on and off ramps, the brokerage layer, as I call it, above it. So it allows you to buy into or exit from a position in crypto. And then on the top, you've got the third party merchant services and the value adds that sit on top. So this mainly takes a dive into the top 2 layers. It doesn't look, I don't see any initiatives on here that take a look at the actual blockchain layer, which is interesting. Because another thing to come out of the VC panel later on in the morning was that none of the VCs thought there were any investment opportunities in altcoins. Bitcoin was
Whoa.
the one currency. That was one of the big sort of insights from this already overrepresented demographic, the venture capital.
That's crazy. I think that, I mean, it's an ongoing discussion. I mean, I guess from the venture capital point of view, maybe it's too risky because you're worried about price. I don't know, but I mean, some of the altcoins have plenty of hash rate and stable networks, so you could also use their blockchains for things. And yeah, I think it's also a topic about centralization. I mean, it's great to use the Bitcoin blockchain to make tokens and other things, but I think it's also good for some other uses to have totally separate networks. You know, we don't need just one crypto network. We need more than one crypto network, and the altcoin world is where a lot of innovation is coming from. Of course, everybody talks about pump and dump, and that's definitely part of it. But there is a lot of experimentation and creativity and innovation going on in the altcoin world, and for them to totally overlook that is kind of interesting.
To be fair, I think they were rather clueless. I mean, I said it the other day, I'll say it again about VCs. It's the same for banks. You know, with VCs, it's just turkeys staring Christmas down the barrel of the gun with this decentralization because Max Kaiser's been tweeting out as well. You know, these VCs are about to get totally disintermediated.
Yeah.
In fact, Swarm, the new service, the new crowdfunding service, Swarm, the founder of that actually stood up and asked them the question, like, what does this all mean? Like, what does your business model mean when I've actually reduced it to just a few lines of code on my, counterparty app that I've just made? And actually, I just felt like that whole panel was just a whole bunch of missing the point for an hour. And things didn't start to get good until Eddie George came up, and then he hosted his panel, and then all of a sudden things got a lot better. Also, I'd like to remind you, just before we go any further, there is a Q&A in the bottom left-hand corner of this video. We've already got one question. I'll wait for a few more to come in, and then we'll answer those as best we can. Why don't we go through some of the highlights on Twitter, because I kind of felt like there was some really good insights and some good tweets. I think that they've done a superb job of the live stream, which has been coming through loud and clear. The bandwidth's been really good. It hasn't been breaking up. I've been getting a really good connection. So they've done a good job of that. So I'll just go through some of my favorites, actually. So
You have one?
Eric Dixon, this is brilliant. Look at this. Actually, talking to a bank about Bitcoin is like going to a hooker for a hug or good conversation. So this was off the back of a comment by this guy who was just brilliant. I thought he was on the panel with Eddie George, Matthias Kroner, who's at Fedor Bank, and he said that they just couldn't talk to the bank, so they decided to set up their own. And he came out with this great quote: "Talking to a bank about Bitcoin is like talking to a vegetarian about your last barbecue." He had wonderful, wonderful analogies. I just love that guy. I said he should be hosting the whole event. He was very,
Yeah.
very funny and also very, insightful. Also, yeah, that's right. We should also talk about the couch as well. So they've got a very, very small couch. Let me see if I can pull up a picture of this thing. It's absolutely hilarious. So this was the VC panel. Um, can you see that? I mean,
Uh,
they really needed a bigger couch.
that
But
is really
so
funny.
it was kind of funny.
Good
So
thing I'm not on that couch.
I think they should have in hindsight they should have started with Eddie George's one
Maybe they
because
couldn't afford one. You know, it's only
maybe at
720
seven
or
at £720 a ticket, you want a bigger couch at this thing,
yeah, yeah,
seriously.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so yeah, we had yeah, here we go. Here's Max Kaiser. He's on a big thing here. Swarm is the Bitcoin fox in the VC hen house.
Yeah, I saw
I
that one. That's a
I
great
I,
one.
I almost sort of feel like this is the old money trying to cling on to power. Like, oh yeah, it's disruptive, it's innovative. Like a lot of the fees, like even if you slash the banking fees by 80, 90%, you'd still be able to get a pretty good business out of that, wouldn't you?
Sure, you could. Yeah, definitely. I think Max Kaiser is onto something with the Swarm, and I've looked at that, and you can already buy Swarm on the Decentral Exchange and Counter Wallet. So you just go to counterwallet dot you go to counterwallet.co, and it's really easy to make a account. It's an online wallet, but without getting into security and all that. It's pretty easy, and the decentral exchange works. It's not fast like a exchange for day trading, but it definitely works. And yeah, and Max Kaiser also on Start Join, so they released a Start Coin, and it's also a similar design. I mean, it's a separate altcoin with its own blockchain, so it's not a token based on Bitcoin blockchain, but it's a similar idea. The idea is to fund initiatives that are on the Start Join webpage, kind of like Swarm wants to, also promote, crowdfund is a crowdfunding platform too, and so is the way they're doing Startcoin and all of these other coins like Let's Talk Bitcoin coin is
I
also for
don't.
rewarding content.
I
Yeah.
don't know that I really see the value in those kinds of projects though, like the start coins. I mean, why would you have your own coin? I can understand something like Swarm, where you're
Mhm.
getting a token that can be used as a transferable equity, or at least that's how I understand it. But I don't understand why you just create a currency for the crowdfunding, because there
To
needs
me,
to be the volume.
yeah, to me it's an experiment. I mean, I don't know either. I just uh I have well, it's the airdrop principle. So instead of, I mean, a token is centralized anyway. So if I make a token on the counter using Counterparty, then I own all the tokens. I have them all, and then people buy them from me. And then if the other people have them, they can sell them to other people. But at the beginning, it's totally centralized. And so if I make an altcoin and I pre-mine half of it and I airdrop it to initiatives that are doing well, and it's also freely traded, then it's a similar, I guess, in a similar way. It's basically using the airdrop thing, which hasn't really worked for all of the other airdrop altcoin experiments. But I think I agree with, I see what you mean. That why would you want another coin? I kind of agree with you. I just think that the idea and the initiative is a similar one to support these to support do crowdfunding and I don't know. I guess that if I have Startcoin, then I can support a project on some other platform that accepts Startcoin. I don't know. I haven't really got into it so much. I just know that uh, there is one project that is paying people in Startcoin now on the website. I do know that, and I saw that Swarm. Yeah, it's. I don't see any projects that they're supporting yet. Do you know if they're supporting any projects yet?
Well, my problem with all of these, especially with like Mastercoin, I've got the same problem I have with Start Coin, not Start Join. I think that's a great platform because Max has got a good voice and he reaches a lot
Yeah.
of people. People really listen to him, so I can see the value add in Start Join. The
Mhm.
problem is that it's very difficult to stay relevant in an already saturated market. There are 360, 70 odd altcoins at the moment, and it's very difficult to stand out. So really, what's the justification? Why should I hold Let's Talk Bitcoin Coin or Mastercoin in the long run? Because I don't want to be exposed to that kind of risk. They might not even be here this time next year. In fact, most of the Bitcoin businesses right now probably won't exist this time next year because the rate of change is increasing so much that the future is more uncertain than it's ever been. So I don't know that there's any real point in holding these currencies. So where are you going to get the volume? Let's say you raise $3 million in Startcoin. You need the buying support on the platform to be able to get your exit because it's not really the Startcoin you want. What you really want are the dollars because that's what you pay your staff in. It's what you pay your taxes in. You
Yeah.
can't pay your staff and your taxes in Startcoin. And let's be honest with ourselves, Bitstamp isn't paying its staff in Bitcoin. It's paying them in euros probably because it's a European business, and most of these exchanges are.
Yeah, well, I think that what you describe isn't. I think that's similar to what happened with MadeSafe, and then they have all these master coins and they can't really sell them
Right. No,
because
exactly. That was just a shambles because they did a special
yeah,
giveaway for Mastercoin up front. Then they realized they were excluding the Bitcoiners. They said, okay, we're not selling them anymore for Mastercoin. We're only selling them for Bitcoiners. And there was a lot of confusion. A lot of people only bought the Mastercoins so that they could buy the MadeSafe coins and get the benefit of that early discount. And so then, of course, there was a massive sale of Mastercoin. And then when MadeSafe came around to actually liquidating their position so they could get what they really wanted, which was the dollars, they couldn't get their exit because there just wasn't the number of buyers in the market anymore, and it was just so temporary, and that's the problem. People aren't thinking long term enough.
yeah, I think you're right. I think the only that people aren't thinking long term. I think the only justification to have a token like that is that yeah, it's like I guess I create a kind of monopoly on a product, and I say yeah, I'm only going to accept payment for my product or service in this currency. So you have to buy. So if I want to advertise, so right now I noticed that Let's Talk Bitcoin, if I want to advertise on Let's Talk Bitcoin, they're having auctions in units of Let's Talk Bitcoin coin. So if you there's an auction for ad space, and I haven't looked in it too much. I just looked at that. I noticed that auction, but I think if you sign up, you make an account and you comment on blogs and you make content, then you get some kind of Let's Talk Bitcoin coin on your account, and I guess you can sell it for Bitcoin, or you can. I mean, you'd have to make a lot of content to buy advertising space. I forgot how many coins you need to do it. But I mean, at the moment, the only use for it is to buy is something related to buying advertising space on Let's Talk Bitcoin. I mean, they could just sell it for Bitcoin, the advertising space. That would
But
be
I
okay
think what they're
too.
trying to do, this is, for me, this is all about locking in value, right? So what they
Mhm.
want to do, if you just let it escape into the Bitcoin ecosystem, then you're not necessarily locking in value to your customer. What I think Adam Levine at Let's Talk Bitcoin is trying to do is he's trying to say, look, let's create a virtuous spiral. Let's encourage and incentivize this behavior. I want you to comment on my blog because it helps me get community and engagement on the platform. It helps me a little bit with the SEO. It
Yeah.
helps also the content providers because they get more people tuning in. And I'm going to reward you in this deflationary currency called Let's Talk Bitcoin coin, and presumably this will then drive up demand, right? If you're getting this,
Yeah.
it's what he calls, and Adam calls it, a very very good phrase of his, a value for value exchange. You provide some value to me, I give you some value back. Now that's great in a rich environment as a thought experiment where everything is equal. The problem is that it's not a perfect world, and what people tend to do is they tend to exit positions at the soonest possible convenience, especially if they don't think this currency is going to hold out for the long run. Why take the risk when there's so much risk in the environment already? Why not just go into a safer asset like Bitcoin? So yeah, I like the sentiment, but you're not really going to be able to stop people from getting their exit, which is what they really want. What people want to do is they want to get some value, and then they want to take that value away and export it to go off and achieve some other goal of theirs.
Yeah, sure. That's the whole exit strategy that you were talking about before. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I think that a lot of it is experimental, and I don't know. I think a lot of this is maybe it's short-sighted. I don't know, but I think that yeah, I think it's okay to not ask permission and just try it. Doesn't mean that it's going to work. But
Yeah, so let's move. Before I go back to the Twitter, I do want to address this comment that Stephanie Baker made. She was from Bloomberg and she was hosting the VC panel. She basically said that we haven't yet had a big retailer take on Bitcoin. And I was sort of listening to that thinking, have you not been reading the news? Do you not actually know what's going on? I think she was talking about Amazon. Now, Amazon already have their own coin. This was something that someone asked on Twitter. Why doesn't Amazon just set up their own coin? Well, they do have their own coin, but essentially it's just a loyalty voucher scheme. And I just felt like that. Anyway, let's move on from the VC panel because I was really uninspired by that. Let's move on to a point that was made on Eddie George's panel, where we had this issue of the consumer doesn't want to understand the complexity of the technology. It just needs to be fast and easy. And I
yeah,
feel like this topic needs way more nuance than it's currently getting, because for me, it's not an either or situation. Steve Jobs put it really well. He said, the customer doesn't want to know how it works. They want to know what it can do for them. The problem is that if people start taking the technology for granted, if they don't understand the underlying philosophies and how it works under the hood, then they're just going to get complacent. They're not going to look after their keys properly. They're not going to take responsibility for their wealth. And we're going to end up repeating the same mistake we made that caused the last financial crisis, which was people outsourcing their wealth management to third parties. Um,
exactly.
so this topic cannot be skirted over. It does need more nuance. People at least need to understand Bitcoin at a high level. They need to understand that the blockchain is an inside-out ledger where everybody owns the public ledger, the discourse. At the moment, you have a small number of people in the banks who control the information about your money and who owns what. With Bitcoin, that information is held on the outside. Everyone has a copy of that information. Also, the incentive structures of Bitcoin are aligned such that honesty has to pay more than fraud. So the people that are updating this ledger, that are witnessing all the economic transactions all over the world, they are incentivized to be more honest than dishonest. Why? Because they could be using their computing power for anything. If you've got a supercomputer at your disposal, you could be using it for nefarious means. Never mind attacking the Bitcoin network. Given the rise in global combined CPU power at the moment, you could be using that to hack a bank, or you could be using it to hack people's passwords, downloading databases of hacked websites like eBay and so on, and Evernote, which was attacked last year. You can download those databases on hacker forums for a price, and then you just put it on your cloud server and you just run a few instances and you start hacking that database. Well, what Bitcoin does and the altcoins is it gives people a way of channeling that CPU power into something that is actually rewarding. Not only are you processing the world's economic payment network, you're also being rewarded in those coins.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
if people don't get that, then they're fundamentally missing the point. And if you get these companies like Circle who just want to come in and replace the old monster with a new monster, and it's like, hey, don't have to worry about your private key, let us look after that for you, without any kind of multi-signature component, I think that's quite dangerous, and we're just going to repeat the mistakes of the past.
Yeah, it's very dangerous. I mean, just what you said, just the simple idea of, yeah, we'll hold your private key for you. Yeah, people have to understand if they have the private key, they have everything. They have total control over the Bitcoin, and people need to be educated about that. So we need to educate people, and I think people are not as stupid as we think. You know, people, just to put it bluntly, they're not as stupid as we think. They can understand that. They can say, okay, I've got two keys, public, private. If you have the private one, then you have control over my coins. If you give that to a third party and they fuck up, then your coins are gone. That's it. That's basically all you have to understand. Do you really want to do that or not? Okay, multi-sig still needs to be developed. We need to, continually do that. That's also a way that could enable a third party to help hold your private key, of course. But just from the simple point of view, the whole point is that it's peer to peer. That you don't need third parties. We have to keep reminding ourselves that we don't need third parties. We can exchange Bitcoin for whatever without any third parties. You can secure your Bitcoins without the need for a third party, and it's not rocket science. This is not rocket science, people.
I always tell people it will take you about an hour of your time to get your head around the core principles. It's not even about education right now, it's about inspiration. People, instead of trying to disseminate information about Bitcoin to people as like, like a patronizing teacher does to a child in the classroom, you need to inspire them to learn more. The banks are public enemy number one. I think most people are itching for an excuse to do away with the global banking system.
Exactly.
The problem is, I think most people, like you say, Theo, quite rightly, we need to give the customer credit. If you treat people like they're stupid, guess what? They're going to act like it, right? But if you give people credit and you help them understand, you give them all the tools they need to overcome the barriers they face in a day-to-day world, really what this paradigm starts to look like then is you just giving them everything they need to be their own bank and giving them the tools and the things that make them powerful. The only reason you should ever look down on someone is to help them up, not to kind of take things away and let them carry on living their sedentary lifestyles with their TV dinners in front of the television or YouTube, or they're playing some game on Farmville and they're just wasting their lives away and they don't want to have to think about things. This is about personal responsibility and taking ownership of the things that really matter, like your wealth, because finance is all about the way we relate to the future.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that we need that. Yeah, like I said, people are not that stupid, and yeah, okay. What can happen is it's also how you explain it. You can't just bombard somebody with in 5 minutes with wallets, Bitcoin mining, cold storage, and everything. It's just step by step. First take a deep breath. Realize you don't just because you explain something piece for piece doesn't mean you have to do it in a derogatory way that assumes the person is an idiot. It just means that they're not going to understand a wallet Bitcoin mining and everything in 5 minutes, and that you're going to have to be a little bit patient when we explain this to people. We're going to have to be a little bit more patient than when we are discussing things with other people that really understand Bitcoin fully.
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest problems with getting into Bitcoin is the Bitcoin Talk forum and also the Bitcoin subreddit, because actually those places are full of trolls. You go there and you ask just the simplest of questions, and people start talking down at you. They call you a noob. And this is the inside outside bias that you see. Look that up, insider outsider bias. It's a well-known phenomena in social psychology where people deliberately, we are hardwired to favor people that look like us, that behave like us. Just I want to be surrounded by people like me that believe what I believe. And as a result, you start to create all kinds of intricate rules and complex languages, pseudo jargon to try and intimidate any
Yeah,
outsider, right?
exactly.
And this is my concern with CoinSummit at the £720 price tag. What exactly are they trying to create in that room? You know, Pamir says in his interviews that they're going for quality, not quantity, but I'm not sure he's achieving either. Now, I'm open-minded and I'm willing to be persuaded on this. At least, you know, they've got the live stream that looks very professional. I've heard that Pamir and Gulnad, the husband and wife team that organize it, aren't making a lot of money. They may only be breaking even. That really for them this is a reputational play, that they are just trying to build some kudos and some credibility in the Bitcoin sphere. Pamir is also setting up a co-working space in London for cryptocurrency startups as well. And my colleague Paul Gordon at CoinScrum, him and I organize one of the largest Bitcoin events in the world. Actually, we've got over 2,000 subscribers there. He's actually now got a desk there, so he's going to be based out of there. So Pamir has been offering up some good services in London.
That's good.
Right, now let's move to one of the questions and answers we've had from Gerard Sinclair. Someone said at the conference that the price was going down because of an increase of vendors taking up Bitcoin. These vendors then convert immediately to fiat and send the price down. So this is an insight that has come up quite a few times in the forums and the chat rooms around the exchanges, when speculators are not sure what to do when a new big merchant like Newegg, who recently came on board, start adopting Bitcoin. How am I supposed to price this in? Is this a buy signal or is this a sell signal? On the one hand, it increases the popularity of Bitcoin and in theory should get the exchange volume going up. But on the other hand, if you're a merchant, do you really want to hold on to Bitcoin? I mean, surely as soon as you get them, you're going to want to sell them for fiat, which will then create a selling pressure. So
Yeah.
let's talk about the Keynesian beauty contest phenomena. Let's talk about the fact that, let me see, what you're trying to do is you're not trying to work out what's valuable to you. You're trying to work out what's valuable to someone else. So as a speculator on BTCE or in Bitstamp, I've already got my capital to market. Okay. Oh, just mute yourself there, Theo, because I think we're getting some interference. So you've already got your capital on the market. You've got your buy orders ready. You can make that purchase right now. And you are constantly watching the ticker and you're watching all the news feeds that's coming out. So you're going on the forums, you're hitting refresh on all these different pages. You're trying to get the information first. As soon as you get that information, you're having to make a decision. What should I do now? Now that I found out that Newegg are accepting Bitcoin, does that mean I should buy it? And what you're trying to do, it's really just psychology. Economics is all about human action. You're trying to work out, what is someone else going to do? What are the management? It's a management execution play. What you're saying is, what are they going to do with those Bitcoins? Are they going to want to sell them straight away? Now we saw with Overstock apparently are keeping about 10% of their Bitcoins, and they're only selling 90%. Really, it comes down to the cash flow of that business. One of the most important things when running a business is your cash flow. Usually, particularly the smaller independent businesses, and personally I think Bitcoin is much better for them than the big chains that we've been talking about, they operate on very, very tight margins. So usually they're operating on a monthly margin. Sometimes they have something called net 90 payment terms with their suppliers. That means they get 90 days to pay their suppliers. So at any one time, you're 90 days away from a potential court order to have you pay over some money, or bailiffs coming around to your door. As a result, because like we say, you can't really pay your staff in Bitcoin, especially in the UK, where the tax on your Bitcoin holdings after the first £10,000 of profit is 40%. So you're as an employee, it doesn't make sense for you to be paid in Bitcoin because you're going to end up paying way over the odds. You're much better off if the merchant sells them for pounds, and then you get paid in the pounds. And then what the speculators have got to do is they've got to try and work this out. Well, if it increases the volume, then longer term, it does increase the value of Bitcoins as a whole as it drives up public confidence. So I felt like that whole kind of VC panel was just a bunch of men who are already overrepresented in this space. They already, they have their articles and they price in their sentiment all over the place because they're making all these purchases. I didn't feel as though their opinion was any more valid than anyone else's. But what do you think, Theo?
Yeah, I agree with what you said pretty much. Of course,
Is it a time to
everybody
buy? Is it a time to buy if Amazon start accepting Bitcoin? Is that a buy signal or a sell signal?
buy, always buy, always buy. No, I'm just joking. Yeah, definitely. I think that it depends. I mean, of course, what's happens is a day. Some people that are really trading on the real short term might try to trigger a panic, and if it's a group of them, they might be able to trick everybody to sell on some kind of news like that. But no, normally I would say it's a buy because in the long run, like you said, there's going to be more volume. And think about all the media attention that happens when Amazon or even when Amazon said they're not going to accept Bitcoins. They didn't just say we're not going to accept Bitcoins. They made a whole, I don't know, 1, 2, or 3 pages explanation about why they're not going to accept Bitcoins, which means they spent a lot of time trying to understand Bitcoin, and they understand it even. You could tell by the way they wrote the paper. And they didn't say they're against Bitcoin. They said, Amazon said, the main reason that we're not accepting Bitcoin is that we're not getting feedback from our customers that they want it. That's it. That was basically it. They didn't say, we think it's dangerous, we don't like it. They didn't say anything like that. They were basically talking about how they're not getting the feedback. And I think when an Expedia or other things like that, that is definitely a buy signal. I think what is happening slowly is that the Bitcoin market for Bitcoin is stabilizing somewhat, at least to media. So you had last year or even earlier this year, every report about China was a negative signal basically. And every report about somebody accepting Bitcoin was slightly positive. And now I think that it's kind of the push of these signals is not as valuable, not as extreme as it was. Expedia, the price went up, but it wasn't as dramatic as I think it could have been months ago. I think that it's kind of people are tired of hearing these news stories, if it's FUD or if it's good news or whatever. I think that it's priced in a little bit, and I think that, but I think that goes back to what I was saying about the companies selling out for fiat. Yeah, they wouldn't have to sell out to fiat if people could buy normal stuff with Bitcoin, like normal things that I buy every day. I guess like a supermarket or cars or train tickets for the
Yeah, or food or
underground and
fuel or all
exactly water,
necessities.
bread, potatoes, beer, basic stuff you need. If we could buy if the company could restock in in um in pay in Bitcoin. I think that's what Overstock is trying to do. What Overstock, I believe, is doing is they're saying, okay, suppliers, guess what? We're going to give you a bonus if you will accept Bitcoin. So we'll even pay more for your stuff, your supply, if you accept Bitcoin, because it's easier for us, because they know that it's a big advantage to use Bitcoin. So they're really behind it, and I think that in the long term, all the companies that accept it, all these big ones, they're going to notice the same thing. I mean, the practice is in the pudding. I mean, when they see when you use it, when the companies use it, I'm convinced that they're going to see, okay, this is really powerful, this is really beneficial to our company, and we need to be able to to buy stock in Bitcoin in the sense, not stock as a share of a company. I mean, resupply whatever goods we're selling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that strategy of paying your suppliers in Bitcoin is really, really a powerful way of doing things. I still wonder though how we're going to get around the taxation issue, especially in America, where the rules are a lot tougher. Um,
Well,
so
I have a
They've
quick thing to
actually they've
say about
actually started again. I think that they're restarting, but this time they're talking about this is where the startups, the entrepreneurs, go up in front of the lions and they start begging for money. So apparently the food served at CoinSummit was good. It was a 3.5 out of 5 stars from Wong Jun Ian. A little bit scarce though, rather like the Bitcoin supply. Um, so yeah, now now we're on to this is the bit I hate is when entrepreneurs and startup founders start begging for money, as if these venture capitalists have any kind of monopoly over whose ideas should be expressed in the world. I really do think it's quite a shame. You've got a 3.5 billion addressable market and the internet population. Why don't you try nurturing that? Rather than trying to pander to the rich. Doesn't make any sense. We've got a comment here from Tony P, who's always a good follower of ours. Yes, exactly, Chris. It's nothing more than an elitist meeting. Reminds me of the corporate propaganda summit. Pricing ordinary people out of the event clearly shows they have no interest in ordinary users, small business. Does it not? Right. So, I mean, I think to be fair, um, what Pamir and Gulnar tried to do is they've tried to sort of mediate and create a self-select group within this sphere. The problem is, I think they've set the price point so ridiculously high that it's kind of backfire. Most of the people that are commenting on the CoinSummit hashtag aren't even there. They're watching the live stream. I think the live stream was a saving grace. That was the sort of thing that they did that I think really saved it for me. Otherwise, I would have been trolling them like mad. But the fact that they've got an open hashtag, the fact that they are actually screening the hashtag on the large display above where the speakers are speaking, I think does speak to the fact that they do get it. Like the organizers get it. They understand that more than one person can speak at a time, that these VCs don't have the monopoly on the conversation, but that effectively they're just trying to bring two groups together. My problem is that a lot of the best ideas in the world, don't have founders that can afford £720 a ticket. And what I was hearing was the maximum discount you were likely to get was 20%, which is effectively the VAT. Now, if you're paying in Bitcoin anyway, I don't know that you're liable to VAT in the first place, so I don't even know if that's an issue. But most of these companies aren't going to be VAT registered. Registering for VAT is one of the last things you have to think about when you're starting up a business. So at £720 a ticket, I think it's absolutely insane, and all it's going to get you is a certain type of person, a person that can afford that kind of ticket at your event, i.e. no one very interesting. Like, I don't care if you've got lots of money. That doesn't tell me anything interesting about you. And what would
yeah.
be really good, since Pamir and Gulnar are so good at organizing events, why aren't they organizing genuine grassroots events? Why aren't they actually doing something like a scholarship scheme where actually someone else can fund, that guy from a lower middle class background or working class background? Maybe his parents didn't have a lot of money, or maybe, she didn't go and get that, degree from Oxbridge, but nevertheless you are able to fund them another way and sponsor them into the event so that they can get access to some of this crowd, because really this is just networking. I've said it before, it's not the money people want, it's each other. They want to be around people, they want to be able to meet people, and then later on, you can say, hey, we we shared the same time together, we saw the same thing, we sat next to each other and we watched that panel. There's a big difference between that and meeting somebody across a hashtag on Twitter. You're much more likely to get a follow-up meeting if you actually look someone in the eye and shake their hand.
Yeah, definitely. And I think on one hand, it's definitely true. It's trying to price people out uh, in a way. But and I think on the other hand, we have to watch that we don't. cut people out ourselves by what we were talking about earlier, by dumbing things down too much. You know, we need to empower people by educating them about how all the complexities of Bitcoin. Doesn't mean you have to teach it in a or educate it in a complex way. You can also educate it in a simple way that is easy to understand. But that's also another way by dumbing people down and telling them, yeah, you just need to use this third-party app and you're ready to go. This is also cutting people out in a different way, in my opinion. You know what I mean? There's the one way of pricing people out of an event, and there's another way if we implement these third-party apps and other things that are not showing people the full capability of Bitcoin and how it empowers you, then that's also a way to cut people out. Yeah, and I think the next person is talking about day trading.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we've got a comment here from Hattori Hanzo. I've been researching speculative Bitcoin traders, and many of them are looking at trends based on Fibonacci's candles and other market trading theories. They are just looking to make profits in fiat currency upon the up and down movements of the market. So this is something called chartism, which is the phenomenon where you basically do a bit of, it's sort of like reading tea leaves, wouldn't you say, Theo? It's
Yeah, I
basically,
mean, I do a bit of chartism myself, and but I mean, I think what's important is to take it with a grain. It's like taking. Hey, I've talked to guys that are doing it all day and that have long-going forex blog website and are doing all the analysts, and they say the same thing, that some of it is like reading tea leaves. But as long as you take it with a grain of salt and you're just looking for a general trend, then I think it's okay to take a look at the chart and see what you can see in it. But if you're, what's happening is, for example, if you go to the famous troll box on BTCE, there was a really great quote that I tweeted out the other day from the troll box, is that 1 minute chart is for new. Of course, they use the word noobs. For noobs, the 1 minute chart is the main chart, and the 5 minute chart is long term. So if you're going to do any chartism, in my opinion, you need to be using at least something like a 1 day candle or something might show you a general trend. But doing these minute candles or even an hour candle is like reading tea leaves. You're not going to be able to really see a trend. And I don't have anything against trading or using algorithms to trade or bots or any of that. It's just the thing is that when the concentration is only on that, that's the problem. The problem is when that's only one aspect, and you're going to have that with any kind of currency or commodity, in my opinion. That's not a problem. The problem is when it's only that. And I also don't think that people are only doing it to get their profits in fiat. I think a lot of people try to time a crash, sell at the top, and buy back in and increase their holdings. It doesn't mean they're successful. It just means that's a common thing that people try to do. So I don't know how many people are really cashing out daily on the little bit of profits they made day trading, but rather they're also just trying to increase their crypto bankroll, so to say.
well,
Whether,
isn't
yeah,
it just a game where we try to collect more and more of these Bitcoin tokens? You
yeah,
know,
definitely, it
I,
is a
I,
game.
I would say it's almost like a real life computer game, right? Why play World of Warcraft and waste your life away when you can actually play for real money and actually get something out of it? But what I would draw your attention to here, now we're looking at the weekly chart. And the weekly chart I would suggest to people at home is probably the most accurate indicator historically of the price movement of Bitcoin, because it's the longest term. Most people are only in it for the short term, but all of their action together amounts to a long-term signal like the weekly. Now, what I've got on this chart is the Fibonacci bars, which is what our questioner was alluding to. And what's supposed to happen, the way this is supposed to work, is it's supposed to give you the support and the resistance. The support is at the bottom, the resistance is at the top. So you can see that, generally speaking, it kind of fits within this paradigm. Now, for a large part, these are arbitrary lines. I mean, they're not arbitrary. They're based on the Fibonacci sequence. But you can see how more often than not, what you're looking for is anything that conforms to some kind of average so that you can just slightly nudge the risk in your favor. But now I'd like to draw your attention to this on the right-hand side here. My problem with all of these markets, and particularly the short-term interest that pervades the activity there, is that you are constantly bombarded with advertising literature that tries to persuade you that the past predicts the future. All of these charts are basically have the same marketing model as a casino. You're there to feel opulent. The whole experience is geared up to saying you can do this too. If you don't want to work to someone else's voice, if you don't want to actually, apply any effort in life, then you can just sit back, have this kind of easy lifestyle where you work from home and just play the candles. And they try to persuade you that there's all these clever algorithms that you can do, that you can buy at the bottom and you can sell at the top, and all you've got to do is subscribe to my newsletter and buy my product. So of course, if you click on this link, then the guys at Bitcoin Wisdom will get a cut, and if you go through to plus 500, they'll get their cut. They're doing very well. The middlemen make tons of money in this market because what they're doing is they're appealing to your sense of, I don't want to say greed, but certainly your need to make something from nothing, or at least to turn X amount of capital into more capital without necessarily digging anything out of the ground, right? Without applying any kind of creativity. You're not a writer, you're not a musician, you're not mining anything out of the ground that someone might be able to actually make some use out of. You're simply putting money that you've already gained from the market before, or maybe you earned at a job, and then you're trying to turn it into more money. And my question to people who do this on a daily basis is, well, why didn't you just negotiate a higher salary at the time? If you weren't happy with that amount of money, why did you settle for it? I'm not against risk management. I'm not against everyone learning how to read these order books and these market signals so that everyone can take a position in the market and manage their risk, because I think that's absolutely necessary. What I'm slightly disappointed by in the Bitcoin community is the lack of ingenuity and creativity, the lack of entrepreneurship among the traders, where they just leave all their funds on the exchange and they don't try to build bridges. There aren't enough people, in my opinion, running accounts on localbitcoins.com, for example. You could actually run quite a good business buying up, getting your capital into the market on BTCE, maybe arbitraging between exchanges, selling at a margin on local bitcoins, maybe doing it for cash, and actually, building out an enterprise it that way. But actually, my fear is that if you were to look at the account sheets across all these exchanges, because you bet that the exchanges are doing this probably in real time. They're looking at all the money coming in, who's trading the most, because of course they'll be trading on their own platforms. They have to, because what do they do with the fees? I think what you'd see is just money moving around from one account to another. I don't think you'd see a whole lot of people diversifying, maybe putting some of their profits into other areas, because it's very hard to diversify within Bitcoin. That's one of the problems, is that once you go into Bitcoin, that you've either got the trader that just trades straight away for fiat, because that's all they really want anyway. They just want the dollars and the pounds and or the euros. And then you've got the people that just stay in crypto. They just trade in and out on the different pairings, but they don't diversify into metals. They don't diversify into any other type of investment, and they suffer base risk. The whole thing could collapse, and then all of your investments go south.
Yeah, I think that you covered a lot of things. I mean, like you said, I'm not against trade. I'm not even against using algorithms and all that and understanding them. I mean, they have merits to themselves. The problem is when you only when that's your only thing, and that and like you said, you need to diversify, and you don't need to go all in like that, and don't fall for fancy advertisements like plus 500 is not even selling you bitcoins. Plus 500 is selling you a CFD. It's highly risky. It's even a, I mean, I don't even know if you don't, CFD, you can't even get a Bitcoin. It's not even about buying a Bitcoin at all. It's just trading a certificate of difference on Bitcoin or Litecoin. So that in itself is it's a derivative, is what plus 500 is doing, and what that ad is. And of course, you were criticizing the ad model, where people put ads on their websites and all that. And I mean, that's going to go away with time. But at the moment, that's probably one of the only ways for Bitcoin Wisdom to make money. I guess they could try to make Bitcoin. I guess they could try to ask for tips. I think they have you can buy a kind of subscription and get more graphics, but it's kind of difficult for a website to be profitable at the moment.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of gutted that not more people are trying to come up with more innovative models than just advertising. Nixie Pixel, who's my champion this week, trying to get her to adopt Bitcoin and start raising money for her videos, excellent videos on giving lay people an introduction into Linux and open source movement. She said in one of her videos that she doesn't want to advertise. She doesn't want to sell you recommendations that you don't trust. That's all an advert is. It's a recommendation from someone you don't trust, someone that's been paid to tell you a message. Why would you follow someone? Why would you listen to somebody who's only telling you something because someone else paid them to? It's just completely messed up, and I think we need to come up with more ingenuity, more innovation in the advertising space. In my opinion, advertising is a bubble, and it only worked because for a while it was possible for a few select people to own the pipes. They were able, broadcasting was expensive. You needed to invest in large broadcasting infrastructure, satellite dishes and antennas, and all of the cabling and so on. Now anyone can be a broadcaster. That's why we're seeing this uptake in all of these live streams. That's why we get 2,000 or more subscribers on World Crypto Network, and we've only been going for 6 months. More and more people coming on board because anyone can have a voice now. We're all rock stars. We're all gods, if you like. And so I'm not really inspired by this. I just think there needs to be more people thinking outside of the box. And I think for someone like Nixie Pixel or Sexy Phil or Jenna Marbles or these kind of Zay Frank or these YouTube celebrities, really they are just a few clicks away. They are 60 minutes away from setting up Bitcoin accounts or even collecting tips from ChangeTip. I was talking to the guys at ChangeTip the other day about them having a more kind of enticing content on their homepage. They need more organized giving, in my opinion. They need to be going out to their users. They need to be saying, look, we got a campaign to get Jenna Marbles receive, getting some value for all the work she does, because at the moment she has like an online shop on her website where she sells pet paraphernalia because she has a couple of dogs that regularly feature in her show. And so she makes money that way. I don't think she makes money with advertising, and I don't think she'd want to, especially with the way she relates to her viewers. She doesn't call them fans, she calls them friends. These are my online friends. And I don't think she'd want to advertise either. But if she's got, let's say she has, I think about 8 million or something subscribers, if only 10% of them were to tip her on a per show basis, I mean, she could be earning, 5 figures easily in the first year. I mean, surely
Yeah,
this should be the strategy. Let's try
yeah.
to
I mean
find an
that.
alternative to advertising.
Yeah, sure. I mean, but if I want to promote something, then I could also ask. I see what you mean. Only promote things that you trust. Yeah, I mean, people could also do that. I think it's difficult because it sounds good, but I'm not sure people are just going to tip. People aren't just going to do it. Now, it could be the harsh reality of it for now. In the
Well, we
meantime,
haven't we haven't
we-
tested that yet. No
yeah,
one
I
no
agree.
one's
I
taken the
agree.
courage to actually let's test it. Let's see if it happens. I reckon, given what we've seen in the last sort of 10 years with companies like Wikipedia coming out and things like this, where things work in practice but not in theory. This phrase
Yeah,
that
yeah,
Jimmy
I know.
Wales often comes out
No, I
with.
think I see what you mean. I think you're right. It's a risk. It could be worth it to test it out. I mean, but I think that's why a lot of people are hesitant to just go on that model and do away with advertising altogether. I think it's a difficult thing, and it's going to take a little bit of time to get over that. Um, yeah. Sorry. Hold on.
I would I actually really liked Idea Lab in the early 2000s with Bill Gross and his work in the search engine area, and actually Google got into a lot of trouble because he was actually sued by Bill Gross, whose idea it was originally to separate the sponsored search results from the unsponsored, the organic search results. So if Google anything, any link that's in blue is an organic search result that comes directly from the algorithm, which is a derivative of all the aggregate users' behavior on the website. And then you have the links in green, which are the sponsored adverts. I don't think there's anything wrong with me recommending a product or a service, let's say on this YouTube channel, am being paid for it, provided I tell my audience that I am being paid to give this message. And by the way, I happen to use this product or service, and I actually do genuinely enjoy it, because everyone can agree that we need, as content makers, that we need to make our lives more sustainable, especially as the economy is becoming more and more automated. A lot of the industries that are going to exist in the future haven't even been invented yet. So what are we supposed to do, particularly if we're living, and we were brought up with middle-class lifestyles? What are we supposed to do in the interim before the new economy comes online, before a lot of these new jobs emerge? I think for a lot of us, it's just about becoming artists, and it's about hosting channels like this one and hoping that you build up a bit of an audience, hoping that you can find some other people in the community that believe what you believe. If they like what you have to say it more, engage them, get them onto your show. Really, I mean, my job isn't even to come up like, I don't see my role here as trying to come up with the right answers. My role really is to set about a mood and an atmosphere which is conducive to producing those right answers, which favors the people at the bottom of the economic scale more than it favors the people at the top. So really all that should stop you from having your say is just the quality of your opinion, and just the how much thought that you've put into it. The thing about the people at the top is they get complacent. They don't want the people at the bottom getting opportunities, because if they do, they know they'll work twice as hard as them. And the problem with being rich is you become incredibly dependent on your lifestyle. You become used to it. You don't want to let go of it, and that's the vulnerability that I think they're afraid of.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
Um, so someone posted that there's this app, Twitter Exal Tip, or I'm not sure how you pronounce it. I've never heard of it. Have you used it
Zal,
before, Chris?
Zaltip, let's pull this up. Yeah, so we've had Hattori Hanzo again is suggesting something to us. I don't know if he's being paid to give us this message, but let's take a look at it. It looks kind of new to me. I don't think. Let's take a look at the website here. Ah, okay. So there's not a whole lot of information. So first of all, that's a little bit of a fail. So if you mention this in the hashtag, so let's outline how these businesses work. So essentially, you have to have access to the Twitter API in order to be able to use one of these. This is not free. It's free to start doing it on a small scale, but then I believe Twitter actually charge you, and you're actually put into a sales pipeline. That means that they want information about you, your business. They want to know what your long-term business strategy is, how many users you want, because it's costly for Twitter to run the data centers, to store all the data, to serve you with bandwidth. So what you're doing is you are polling the API for data from people's Twitter streams. And whenever you see someone mention Zappo tip or change tip or any of these other ones, what it will do is it will execute some code. It will run some very, very basic semantic analysis, and I mean really basic. It's basically a keyword search, and it will look for things like, pay my friend $10 in Bitcoin, or pay them, give them a pizza, and then it will work out that a pizza is $2.50. It will do the exchange rate on the fly so that you don't have to, and then someone will get a message from one of these services. Let's see if there are any in its stream here, and it will say, congratulations, sent you Bitcoin, sign up to claim them. Now, this is not a decentralized solution. That's an important distinction to make, and it doesn't have to be. This is usually an SQL database, a very centralized database on somebody's website, and you should not consider this long-term storage. This is basically just have a bit of fun. It's a frictionless, that's the buzz term that's used in startup land, it's a frictionless way of sending value at almost at the speed of a thought. right? You like what somebody said, you love a video that someone's given. Maybe you've been a fan of somebody for a long time and you've never said anything, and you haven't ever commented on them, but actually you just get this moment of sort of insight and generosity, and you say, actually, you know what? I've been enjoying your videos for 4 years, and I've never given anything in return. You never asked anything in return. Here, have $40, or maybe you can calculate it like I'll give you $1 for every video of yours that I've liked, and you can go through your YouTube history and take a look at that. Well, however you want to calculate it, but really it's about the social signal. What I'm inspired by is that the more generosity that there is, generosity comes from like generation, right? You're just being generative. It's not that you are being altruistic, it's that you are trying to create a value add, because the more generous you are, the more generous other people will be, because people will look at this behavior. In fact, there have been psychological studies that have shown that the more generous one person is, the more generosity it fosters throughout the whole community. But remember, even when you're generous, and even when you send somebody some money across the internet, you still own it, right? So it's not entirely altruistic, because you still get a reputational hit from that. You still get the kudos and some of the good warm fuzzy feeling that you get inside. And I've said to people for a long time, if you're stuck for knowing what to do with your life, if your goals are too vague, like many people's, mine included, just start by promoting other people first. Just try to look for other people whose values align with yours, follow them, take an interest in them. The first thing you should ask them is, what are you promoting today? What are you interested in? What do you want to achieve? And try to help them achieve their goals first, because it will start to help you understand the kind of things that you need. It will also make you valuable to other people. I don't think it's money right now that people should be stacking. I think what money people need to be stacking is trust.
Yeah, sure. That's all correct. I think the devil's advocate would just say, yeah, how can I run a business based on tips? I mean, that's the basic devil's advocate response. I
Well,
mean, I agree. I totally agree. We need to be building trust. We need to be, generating content, not generating content just for SEO purposes, but just, we need to be making stuff. We need to be, creating, and we need to be bouncing ideas off of each other like we're doing. But I totally agree with that. It's just, if I need to buy beer, bread, and potatoes, and I don't have enough tips, then what am I gonna do? I'm gonna have to go get a normal job where maybe it includes advertising if it's something web based. You know, that's it.
yeah, but I think you've got to foster that. You can't just expect it to change overnight. Like someone needs to just take
Yeah.
the first step, like Satoshi did, where it's like, okay, this idea has been plaguing me for a while. I don't know if it's going to work, but you know what? I'm just going to build it first.
Hmm.
I'm going to build it first. I'm going to start asking for feedback, and then I'm going to publish a white paper. At the moment, I think people have got it back to front. The first thing they do is they write a white paper, or no, worse, they come up with a logo, they come up with a brand, they try to claim a trademark. They don't do any development. They don't tell anyone about it, and if they do, they make them sign NDAs. They deprive themselves of the oxygen of feedback that they need. They deprive themselves of the community. If someone else, people buy into motives more than actions. They buy into why you're doing it. They don't buy into what you're doing necessarily, because nobody has an original idea. If an idea comes to you, it's probably also come to a million other people on earth. 90% of those people can be discounted because they probably live below the poverty line. The next 9% can be discounted because they're far too busy and maybe they forget it, they don't write it down, and they don't act on it. And then the last 1%, that's your competition. And the biggest threat you face when you're a startup is the competition that you don't know about. It's someone else who's had the same idea as you, but they've gone about the execution in a slightly different way. And a lot of it's down to, where you've come from, what benefits that you started from, how much money you've got, whether mum and dad are propping you up, that they're supporting your lifestyle. As many of my friends that live in London right now are living under those same auspices. They're living under the auspices of, well, I know that I can move him back in with mum and dad if I need to. I've got this kind of safety net. And I think Sun Tzu said it in The Art of War. Sometimes to get the best out of your troops, when they land on the shore, you burn the boats. You don't give them any exit strategy, right? It's do or die. You just go hell for leather because you know there's no other way forward. So So Thea, I mean, maybe we should. Well, we've got 20 viewers now. If people want to keep asking questions, I'm more than happy to address them down in the bottom left-hand corner of this video. Otherwise, I was going to suggest that we take a break, go back to watching the live stream, and then maybe once the guys in the States wake up, like Tom and Megan, I think are interested in joining us, maybe we can reconvene then, no?
Yeah, that sounds good. To see what's going on at the Coin Summit, since we didn't have 720 pounds and you had to apply to go there anyway. At least we get the live stream. But it's kind of like window shopping, or we get to look in the window of the elite conference and see what they're doing, at least what they're doing publicly. We don't get to, listen in on the conversations, or see what people's personalities are like. And yeah, we can keep the discussion going about tips and all this kind of stuff, and what other topics are going to come up at the. I see right now. I guess yeah, it's someone pitching a solution, Bitcoin via SMS. So that's also an interesting topic. I just noticed that on the Coin Summit screen. So yeah, are we going to set a time right now, or how are we going to do it, or estimated time?
Well, I'm just posting up on the comment section on YouTube. I think we should probably leave it for a few hours. Let's watch some of these pictures. Let's go through some of the hashtags on Twitter, and then when the guys from the US have woken up and they've had their coffee, we can perhaps reconvene them, because I also understand that Swarm, the startup that we were talking about earlier, who've recently launched, and I think they've also pitched, are going to be hosting an after party. So once their after party's up and running, I guess we can maybe pass some comment on more of the thoughts and topics and themes that come up later in this afternoon's discussions.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah.
So thanks very much for tuning in. I'm going to post a link to our Twitter. I'm at Mr. Chris Ellis on Twitter. We're also at World Crypto Net as well, which is the official Twitter account for World Crypto Network. So please join us there, and we'll talk to you later this afternoon. Thanks for tuning in.